She's to sick bay. The doctor should look at it as soon as possible.
It is the way in which we propagate our species. Please demonstrate how this is accomplished. So, what's next? I don't know.
Hi, and welcome to Casual Trek, a Star Trek recap and ranking podcast brought to you by Nerd and Tie and Fake Romulan Ears. Please, someone buy our fake Romulan ears. We've got so many of them, and they're all just for variety here. I'm Charlie Etheridge Nunn. I'm a writer and a Three Kingdoms fan.
I'm Miles Reed Lobato, a science fiction writer and a Third Doctor fan.
Oh no! Well, I'm Sean, and I'm an interloper to this podcast and a Farscape fan, which is definitely going to come up. So,
Ooh,
put that
interloper,
Interloper.
It's like, Miles, did you let the door open?
No, this is part of you know how every so often in this show I may have politely inferred once or twice that Sean here pays for Twitter. Well, the court case ruled in favor of Sean, and so it's either give him a guest spot on the episode or I have to pay him money I don't have.
And then he'll just use that to pay for Twitter.
Pretty much.
And friends don't let friends do that.
Thankfully, I think it's one of those double indemnity things where I can't get charged for the same crime twice. But I could be... Yeah.
So, yeah, for a little while now, in our show where we look at different Star Trek shows and rank them on a big list of best to worst, we've mentioned Sean, mostly in complimentary fashions, right, Miles?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes, we have, always.
And Sean's mentioned previously about wanting to cover the Unification trilogy of Star Trek episodes. So, Sean, why?
Well, I mean, thematically, it'd be a unification of two Nerd and Tie podcasts, of course.
Ooh.
But also, I am an unabashed Discovery stan, and I'm going to be honest, Unification 3 got to me, and it made me think of how good the other episodes were, which, well, I won't rate them now, but let's just say I was very happy to go back and watch them.
Excellent. And yeah, you mentioned coming from another Nerd and Tie show.
Oh yeah.
Sean, what is your deal? Who are you?
So originally we joined the network as the Famicom Dojo video game podcast, the audio version of our YouTube show, or shows, I guess. We more do live things these days, but we are better taped, as we always like to say. But we also then split off into Two Boobs Watch the Tube, which we do occasionally. And when Casual Trek came along, we're just like, well, these guys are doing it better, so we better horn in on this action pretty quick.
Fair.
There is actually a Two Boobs Watch the Tube episode where I guest star, where we talk about the Christopher Eccleston era of Doctor Who. And I think Sean only got me on intentionally to try and get into a fight with his co-star Vink. And the tables ended up turning, and it basically became Miles and Vink against Sean.
These slanderous rumors are entirely true.
Also, Sean once mentioned how I can now make him cry by referencing Quantum Leap on that exact same podcast, and this is a power I've only ever used for good.
We covered Quantum Leap and intended to just like do the whole thing, but then the new NBC series came out. It's like, well, maybe we'll pivot to like going through all of Quantum Leap. But there is a point where my co-host Vink asks me if I am in fact crying, and again, those slanderous rumors were true. So yeah, I'm an easy mark apparently, especially now that the new series has been canceled on very similar circumstances. But that's not what we're here to talk about today, is it?
Oh, no, I didn't realise the new one had been cancelled. I hadn't even started watching it.
Oh boy, it's still worth watching in my opinion. I purchased the Blu-ray of the first season because I'm very concerned about things disappearing from streaming forever.
Yeah. Fair.
Well, now that you know that, I can't tell if watching the final episode will be that much better or worse.
Who knows? Okay, so before we go on and talk about unification, we always like to talk a little bit about a non-Star Trek thing, as if we don't fill this with non-Star Trek tangents anyway. So, Sean, as the guest star here, what non-Star Trek thing have you been enjoying?
There are so many things, and I would point you to our show, but we haven't recorded one in a while, so I'll just say the second season of the House of the Dragon. I was really enjoying that. Again, like anything where there's source material and fans that have a lot of opinions about that material, there were a lot of complaints. I might have fallen into that trap a little bit myself, not so much because I didn't feel like it was following the source material as much as I felt like they wanted to insert needless drama for the sake of I was wrong, is the long and short of that, but it's based on material that people probably haven't read, though. George R. R. Martin, instead of writing Winds of Winter and anything else for the last 10 years, co-authored something called A World of Ice and Fire, which covers some of this, and then wrote Fire and Blood, which goes into a lot more detail, but like as a text is written from the point of view of an in-universe maester who's like a historian, trying to discredit the existence of magic and dragons and whatnot. So that's what the show is based on, is this like third-hand historical account. So there's lots of license for actually writing the first-person perspectives of what actually occurred during the Dance of the Dragons, which is the fantasy version of the War of the Roses, essentially. And so we're into the second season, where that war is pretty much in full swing. And I enjoyed the heck out of it.
I have that World's of Ice and Fire book. I've mostly used it to rest like laptop or my iPad on when I'm writing. But yeah,
it is very large and very soft.
It's very large and very nice to use as a surface. Although mine's got a couple of coffee rings on it now. I recommend those.
As a historical tome should, I'm to understand. In the 90s, there was this Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade video game by LucasArts, and it came with a booklet of the Elder Jones's diary, which had coffee rings all over it. So, to my understanding, this is how you do history.
Yeah, nice. I saw season 1 of House of the Dragon. My partner bailed partway through because I think just seeing the Targaryen conflict and their nonsense rather than getting a bit of a wider view, and like if you're not interested in that, that's the show. I personally, when we started and bailed on Rings of Power, I ended up going back to House of the Dragon because I was like, give me this but make it trash. Like, I want the trashy version of this, and that's how I powered through all of House of the Dragon season 1.
You basically want the sword and sorcery equivalent of Dynasty, don't you?
Kind of. I'm fine with that, to be honest. Yeah, and that's basically House of the Dragon season 1. So I'm pleased to hear season 2's good fun. At some point, I'll get round to it. Probably before I get round to finishing Rings of Power Season 1. Even though I did hear that big old Tommy B is going to be in Season 2. And I'm a big Tom Bombadil defender.
I wasn't sure how that was going to go. I watched the one episode where he's appeared so far. I'm assuming there's going to be more. Yep. The guy playing him, they really made him up, because I would not have guessed. From the behind the scenes stuff, it was the same person, but we'll just say they're singing, in case you were worried.
Good. I did hear his boots on yellow though.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes.
I'm sure there are many angry people online.
Yep, for that and all kinds of other reasons.
Okay, and Miles, what about you?
I watched Paddington 2 yesterday. I finally got my wife and I finally got around to watching Paddington earlier in the summer. Utterly charmed by it. It was delightful. Peter Capaldi playing like that one neighbor was amazing. I felt that whenever I was worried that the film would get too twee. Because Britishness as a brand is something I have to conflict myself every day of my life. And I found that every time the film got too twee, it quickly undercut it immediately. And I appreciated that. Whereas Paddington 2 is all twee, but is delightful. It's delightfully twee in a way of like a warm coffee and a sweater somehow feels. Not so much Peter Capaldi in this one, but Hugh Grant takes the role as the villain, and he just steals the show.
He's so good in that. Yeah, I find, especially as a fairly cynical person from a very cynical family, I'd heard everyone say how delightful the Paddingtons were, and was terrified that I'd watch it and just be dead inside. But no, they're the kind of films where it's like watching Ted Lasso, going, I don't care about the subject matter, but it's my blackened heart's beating slightly.
Yeah,
What's happening?
It is the line in the Nick Cage film, I think, the unbelievable weight of massive talent, where he and the character played by Pedro Pascal talk about their third favorite films, and the Pedro Pascal character says Paddington 2, and he goes, Paddington 2? Really? He's like, yes, it made me want to be a better person. And then it cuts to them watching the film and crying, and Nick Cage goes, Paddington 2 is the best film I've ever seen. It's just like, as someone whose attitude to like overly twee middle class Britishness is to basically do his best impression of Rick Mail in The Young Ones and kind of like flip a V and just kind of blow a raspberry, I was utterly charmed and delighted at this movie. I loved it. It was great. I can't complain.
Nice.
All right. I don't often find myself on the wrong end of colloquialisms, but I gotta ask, as an ignorant Midwesterner, what twee is?
I think I would say overly cutesy Britishness. You know, the idea of like, you know, we're still kind of like this 1950s tweed jacket wearing, pipe smoking, conservative voting, queen worshipping, no foreigners, no poor people kind of mentality. It is, I kind of now just sum up Britishness, twee, as like how Britain likes to export its identity to other countries. Now that imperialism is widely constituted as a bad idea.
Right. It's like that TikTok about how cutesy Japan is now, but it's like, you don't want to see my real face anymore, do you, America?
Yeah.
I get it. I get it now. Okay. Sure. So I would compare it to maybe like Babe, but you know, more British.
I would say so, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like very kind of just pastoral and kind of, it's all, everything's lovely, there are no problems, and all the problems are problems made up by poor people because they won't work hard enough, you know. You're American, Sean.
They're
you know
not grateful to their betters and all that, you know. Not like the happy servants in Downton Abbey, that kind of thing.
Okay.
It's either adorable villages or Richard Curtis land if you're in a city, you know.
Yeah. It's basically, I'd best say twee is like the parts in the Lord of the Rings films when Sam starts talking about how lovely the Shire is. And like, you know, you've got the nice Howard Shore kind of da 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 da. And you're like, oh, wouldn't it be lovely to live in a village with no bus route and make jam?
I'm realizing now this is the exact thing that I think almost every period piece of Russell T Davis's run is a Doctor Who was trying to rail against. It's all making sense now.
Yeah, pretty much. It's England is a country where, you know, we embrace and fetishize our past while also being in aggressive conflict with our past, and sometimes we win, sometimes we lose.
As an
And
American
sometimes
can
we just
relate.
don't win. Yeah. Um, yes, if you want to know more about the British madness, there's a great book called Watching the English, which is an anthropological study of the English by an English person. And it's very good fun. The introduction is all about her psyching herself up to the one of the biggest sins, which is to jump a queue.
Oh,
No.
Yeah, it takes a drink or two in order to do that. Terrible.
And Charlie, what about you? What non-Star Trek thing have you enjoyed recently?
Well, we try not to double dip on things that we've already covered, and I've found a workaround. I've been getting into Taskmaster New Zealand. It's like Taskmaster is such a fun series, and I've seen most of the British shows like probably 1 to 2 times each, as it's something that you can always revisit and see these brilliant moments of genius and hubris as comedians try and fail to do tasks set by a man who definitely wants to be incredibly annoying and achieves it perfectly with Alex Horn. The New Zealand version of Taskmaster changes up the hosts and changes the flavour a bit. So it's a little less lively. It's a little more earnest in some ways, and there is that sense that maybe they've done, I think, 3 or 4 series now, but they won't have enough comedians to go to like 5 or 6 series of it. You know, there's a weird locality to it all. And after initially watching the first episode and bouncing off it because, Paul isn't Paul Williams isn't Alex Horn and all of that, it kind of won me right over. Some of the weirdness, like one of the contestants constantly bringing in prize tasks, which it becomes increasingly clear were in his boot.
That's a trunk.
Yeah.
In case you didn't understand, Sean.
I don't understand any of this, but thank you.
Excellent. Yes. Oh God. Yeah. Sean, have you seen or heard of Taskmaster?
No.
Okay.
Brilliant. And this means nothing to you.
It is all legally on YouTube. You should check it out. Like Tall Katie loves it, Cavsy loves it. These are
of course they do.
Of course they do. I sum up Taskmaster to Americans as watching incredibly educated English comedians act like idiots. And and that is the humor.
Okay.
You see some wonderful personal nervous breakdowns in some of these tasks. It's a glorious thing to see.
I need this now.
You do. You do.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
no.
I definitely recommend the New Zealand one as the kind of follow up to it. Or if you find the English one a little too sharp, then it's a nice gentle movement into all of it. Okay. And listening to the Taskmaster podcast, because I've been covering the New Zealand episodes as well, that's been a brilliant pairing of finding out what the fuck most of these New Zealand extremely local references are and what any of this actually is, because I've never heard of most of their comedians, where here I'll at least get like half of the cast.
I know one of the New Zealand guests because they did a podcast, The Worst Idea of All Time.
Yeah.
And I just messaged my lovely wife, Rihanna, telling her that Charlie and I are trying to get Sean to check out Taskmaster. And her reply right now is simply, yes!
Yeah.
I
resisted for years as friends of mine kept saying, you have to watch it. I was like, it's a quiz show type thing. I don't give a shit. And then I finally saw it, and yes, it must be seen.
like New Zealand, I can't even think of anyone from there except like the cast of Flight of the Conchords. That's it.
They have a surprisingly good comedy scene there.
Yeah.
New Zealanders, I would, as an Englishman, I get mistaken for Australians and New Zealanders all the time. And I've come up with a perfect good way to sum up the difference between all three countries.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone from England just sounds done with everything. We just sound like fed up and that you're ruining our day by talking to us. Australians, on the other hand, sound maniacally happy, like almost Lovecraftian crazed, because they live on an island where everything fucking wants to kill them, and the only choice to survive is to kind of go mad with that knowledge. And New Zealand, I believe they secretly grow the best fucking kush, and they're all stoned off their kiwi flavored tits morning, noon, and night, because that's the only way to explain why every single New Zealander I've ever spoken to just sounds like they're having the best day ever.
Wow. Well, on that note, feels like a good time to have the best day ever with our friends here and talk about some Star Trek.
Oh, is that what we're here for? Okay, yeah, let's do that.
I know. We've had 20 minutes of waffling, and now it's time for the Star Trek bit of it. So, the Unification trilogy is separated by decades. We have parts 1 and 2 together. So, this time, Miles and I will be recapping parts 1 and 2 together in some kind of horrific relay. But first, for facts about it. Oh, yeah. So, the first 2 parts were in Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 5. They were Episodes 7 and 8. A rare occurrence, as they were Unification 1 and Unification 2, instead of having part in the name. I know. These are brilliant facts that I'm dropping here. It aired on the 4th and 11th of November, 1991. Part 1's teleplay was by Jerry Taylor, who also wrote for novelization at the same time. Part 2 was had a teleplay by Michael Piller, and the story for the whole thing was by Rick Berman and Michael Piller. Part 1 was directed by Les Landau, and Part 2 by Cliff Bowl. Now, we normally talk about what the UK and US number 1 hits were to kind of place it in time. And here...
But before we do that, can I say I actually picked up novelization. I haven't read it yet. But if you look at the cover, it looks like Spock has let out a sneaky little fart, and Picard is like, I think he just farted. I don't know if I can call him on it.
I've seen this cover. Do I have it? I don't have it.
Thing is, maybe it was like that in the teleplay and it just got edited out of the show. Because spoilers, that doesn't happen in the show.
No.
No. That'll cut at least a minute off of my recap, so that's fine. Anyway, the UK number 1 hits for these weeks were U2 with The Fly and Vic Reeves and Wonder Stuff with Dizzy. And I did have to put a bit of an apology in there for Sean about, good luck understanding Vic Reeves.
I mean, Vic Reeves is on Taskmaster, but he and his comedic partner in crime, Bob Mortimer, I don't think ever really their sense of humor ever translated to America, because they're trying to explain the madness that is shooting stars.
God. I wasn't even thinking of shooting stars. I was thinking the smell of Reeves and Mortimer.
Oh, no,
yeah.
I mostly know them from Shooting Stars and their remake of Randall Hopkirk Deceased back in the early 2000s.
Yeah, which was actually quite good.
Yeah.
But yeah, very, very weird. What used to be called alternative comedians. So yeah.
The only thing I could think of watching the music video for that was I'm convinced that Austin Powers must have been parodying that video or something, because it looked very, very familiar to me. The whole BBC song that he does at the end.
I feel like Austin Powers and the video are parodying kind of like the same source because he looks
Okay.
with like the cape and the cravat. I
Yeah.
feel like he's doing the British show Adamant Lives, where this I think like he's an Edwardian like gentleman adventurer, gets frozen in time and then wakes up in the swinging 60s, and like he's like this gentleman like kind of dashing heroic adventure. He has a sword cane, and while he's all very kind of prim and upper class, he's like, ooh, mini skirts, free love, groovy, I am down.
So it's like a reverse Austin Powers.
Pretty much.
Oh my.
Yeah.
Right.
I saw Vic Reeves dressed like that and was like, he'd make a really rubbish The Doctor.
Yeah.
I love Vic Reeves, but he'd be really bad at it.
Vic Reeves would be one of those people that used to rumor would be the Doctor in like the 90s when it was just basically a tabloid gag, like, ooh, we're gonna get Eric Idle to be the Doctor. We're gonna get Eddie Izzard. Eddie Izzard as the Doctor. I don't know, could work, couldn't work. But back before like we got like respected character actors and also David Tennant to be Doctor Who.
Oh. Wow. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
And the US hits were slightly less disturbing than that. We had Karen White with Romantic, which I don't remember at all, and Prince with Dream, which was quite a video.
Out of these four, like as someone who lived in the US at the time and was like conscious, I don't remember the Romantic at all. Cream, I mean, it sounds like it's off the Batman soundtrack, but apart from that, is it normal for like there to be two different number ones just a week apart? Like were these like vying for supremacy? I don't recall any of these songs except
not so much in the old days.
Okay.
Like there used to be a lot of movement, and then now we're kind of back to there being a bit of a dearth, so you'd end up getting kind of the same thing, which is why Nemesis of the pod, Ed Sheeran, keeps popping up when we listen to some of the modern ones.
I will say, it was weird with watching the video for the U2 song to find a U2 song. I'm kind of like, okay, I kind of like this for some reason. Yeah. Although watching Bono swan around in his big black jacket, his big black shades, like, yup, I can see Bono's Messiah complex starting to take root right now.
Oh yeah. Yes. The Vertigo comics look for him.
Yeah, he looks like Grant Morrison in the 90s, and I didn't think that U2 was so early, but they're so...
Oh yeah.
They're so...
They were late 80s.
Like, so proto... He's like almost proto-Britpop.
Sure.
Like, you can see where the Gallaghers are going to just jump him, steal his shtick, and run away to financial stardom, and then a divorce so expensive that they're going to have to reunite next year, which I find incredibly funny.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It's rare that I hear a U2 song that I don't really know. And all I can compare it to is, again, another Batman film. It sounds like... oh, shoot, Miles told me before the show. Kill me, thrill me. Yeah.
From Batman and Robin, from like the good one.
Which was later. Wait, the good what? I'm sorry. Couldn't have heard you right.
Wow. We're coming with the opinions today, then. So we're going to do a recap relay. And as tempting as it was to do as my partner had suggested, and cover my bit and then just silence to make sure that I ran to 9 minutes and 50 seconds. I'm actually going to try and get this in.
Okay.
Wow, what have I done to annoy Emma lately? Is it because I keep bringing up Blake's Boys?
Possibly.
Okay, understandable.
I don't know. Maybe she's just sensed that you keep saying about maybe one day doing a Lost podcast. You know, which I would love. I have the anniversary of Lost in my bullet journal, but But no, man, I've only got so much time in the day.
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right.
Speaking of which,
Sean, do you have the timer ready?
The timer is ready.
okay.
And begin.
So, first of all, F's in the chat for Gene. Now, Picard has a meeting with Admiral Baracus with some secret information. 3 weeks ago, a Vulcan ambassador vanished and recently reappeared on Romulus. Is this a defection? Maybe, and we need to find out. But who is this potential defector? It's Spock! Oh my god, what a shock! Yeah, so, thing is, Picard doesn't know much about Spock, but he is mates with Sarek. The pair had a bit of a mind meld thing going on a little while ago. We've yet to cover that, so I'm keeping it vague. He heads off to see Sarek, who is in incredibly bad health right now. Also, possibly related, there's some wrecked Ferengi salvage ship that's been found with some, like, Vulcan parts. That's weird. We'll put a pin in that. Anyway, back to Sarek. His emotions are taking over, and luckily he gets shouted into lucidity by Picard. And when Spock's brought up, oh, he's back in the room. Okay, yeah, he knows a little bit about what Spock might be doing on Romulus. He's got his old pal, Pardek, who's a senator. Unfortunately, the lucidity doesn't last. He does mention Spock running off into the mountains, which we covered in a previous episode, but not Spock bumping into his adult self from the time hole and his pet dying. Oh well. Sarek declines again and tries to say what to tell Spock. Picard knows the drill. It's going to be the fingers, so he helps him doing that, and the whole live long and prosper. It's all quite touching. Yeah, JL now needs a cloaked ship to go into Romulan space. Klingons are good for that, but Gowron's busy rewriting histories now that he's in charge, saying, Federation never helped me, it was all me and my mad starry eyes. Even so, with some work, Picard gets a ship and a captain to help, / kind of prank him a bit. Data gets a visual of Pardek from years ago at a meeting. He's a radical because he's pro-peace. Data's been prying, somewhat worryingly, knows exactly the details of Pardek's family and where they meet, so that he and Picard can intercept them. They get some Romulan, like, forehead prosthetics from Crusher, and Mott even makes some nice, Romulan hairstyle wigs. Riker, in the meantime, is going to take the Enterprise to a junkyard, while JL does the infiltration. The Klingon captain, Kavada, takes the piss a bit by giving them his shittiest room to stay in. And Picard tries to remain enthusiastic. He's all like, yeah, this is great. I like sleeping on a flat board. But it's a bit much while Data stares at him while he sleeps. The Enterprise reaches Quaylord 2 to find out how the salvage got on a Ferengi ship, and a Zacton with a distressing amount of face folds runs a space junkyard. He's really unhelpful, but behaves a bit better when Troy's assigned to deal with him. He finds the location of the Vulcan wreck, but it's gone. Oh my god. And the ship that should have the tech that's gone from there, that's also gone, which is weird, because they still keep sending shipments there. And there aren't any floating in space. What to do? The Enterprise goes undercover as a wreck by just switching all the lights on, pretending no one's in. Picard, meanwhile, still can't sleep, what with Data just staring there being Data, and gets summoned for the bridge for some sad news. Alas, Sarek is dead. A heavily armed ship parks where the Tripoli was supposed to be, out by the Enterprise, and Riker hails them immediately. There's a bit of a shootout, and the thing is, this is a heavily armed ship, so it blows up from all the munitions and shit that it's got. Bugger. They have to figure out where to go next from there. Picard and Data try on their Romulan makeovers. Ooh, it all looks nice, you know. Data's covering up all the kind of gold. Sarek Steph's really shaken Picard, because now he has to find Spock, make sure he's not defected, and tell him his dad's dead. It's going to be a busy day for both of them. Over on Romulus, Pardek is summoned for council chambers and said, Have you seen a Picard around? Rumour is he's here and probably in disguise. No one can keep any secrets here. No one at all. Everyone knows Spock's defected. Everyone knows Picard's here. Speaking of which, Data found the street where Spock and Pardek have been photographed in and hang about suspiciously at a nearby cafe. They poke about at some soup and get caught. They're taken down into a cave, introduced to Pardek, but also to Spock. Bum, bum, bum! To be continued. Miles, go.
Spock tells Picard that it's not the Starfleet's concern to know what he's doing here. Picard tells Spock, nuh-uh, we are so concerned. Whatever cowboy diplomacy Spock is up to won't be so lightly appreciated, even after everything Spock has done, up to and including helping kill a giant fucking amoeba. Oh, by the way, Sarek's dead. Spock takes Kurt Picard aside, and Picard tells Spock how much Sarek loved him, and Spock's like fobs him off, telling him that there's a growing overture amongst Romulans about embracing the Vulcan philosophies and achieving reunification, and that there's a new, young, hip, sexy pro-council who's been elected who might be open to peace reforms. If this is true, asks Picard, then why tell no one in the Federation? Spock talks about how he was the one who made peaceful overtures to the Klingons and got Captain Kirk in a whole heap of trouble because of it. Footnote, see Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, either on home media streaming or when we probably get to it next year. This has been a footnote by Magnificent Miles. Because of that, he refuses to endanger any lives apart from his own and tells Picard to leave. Spock tells Picard that he's been doing cowboy diplomacy before Picard was born, up to and including that time he brought down one or two civilizations with Kirk. Picard tells him that he won't leave until Spock has completed his mission. Spock wryly tells Picard that he is just as stubborn and sexy as another Enterprise captain he once knew. That's right, the guy played by Cameron from Ferris Bueller's Day Off in Star Trek Generations. Data plans to access the Romulan command systems from the Klingon ship, also using it to piggyback a signal back to the Enterprise. While Spock and Picard wait in the cafe for Pardek, a young Romulan boy arrives with a book on Vulcan history for Spock. Spock has been meeting with members of all these different groups from many different provinces. Pardek remarks when he arrives that the younger generations will be the one to bring change to Romulans, while older generations will be stuck with their prejudices, and then they can then go to meet the pro-council who wants to meet Spock. In a seedy space bar, Riker meets the ex-wife of a dead smuggler, hoping to track down information on the stolen surplus. The seven-armed piano player knows Andorian blues, and while Riker can't pay his way, he can pay with some decent piano licks, and that's enough to charm her to tell him that the Ferengi Lumak will be by in a few days. Meeting Neral, the pro-council, Spock is surprised that someone so high in the Romulan Senate would support reunification. Neral talks about how both planets need each other and that the older senators have lost touch with the people. Hey, it's almost as if the political system shouldn't be filled with old and out-of-touch politicians and that younger generations need to be in office. What a revolutionary concept! Neral wants to open talks with Vulcan, even if Spock feels that the Vulcans will be naturally suspicious. Neral is called back to the Romulan Senate, and Spock has to leave. But as Spock leaves, the Romulan sailor arrives. Oh no, it's a trap! Sailor is also played by Denise Crosby, who played Tasha Yar, and is actually the daughter of a Tasha Yar from an alternate universe. This is some X-Men convoluted BS right here. At the meeting of the movement, Picard is paranoid that Neral is wanting to jeopardize his position despite needing support from the traditionalists. Spock backs him up, but the movement is worried that Picard and the Federation wants the Romulans and Vulcans to keep fighting. Spock will keep working towards peace, even if he's just as suspicious, but Picard warns him he might be being swayed by the emotions of the movement. Spock accuses Picard of speaking with Sarek's voice, and Picard is like, yeah, we mind melded him. He'll always be part of me, but I'm also calling BS on this. Spock apologizes to Picard that he is transplanting his old arguments with Sarek onto Picard, and he believes that Sarek would never feel unification is possible, but Spock will go ahead no matter what. Back on the Klingon ship, Spock and Data work together to hack the Romulan systems. Picard leaves to remove his disguise and leaving Data and Spock to talk. Spock praises Picard's rational Vulcan-like qualities.
And there we are.
Oh.
10 minutes. Well, we'll see how much Charlie is to blame after we finish up here.
All right, okay.
All right, resetting and go.
Data mentions how Picard has helped Data's search for humanity. Spock praises Data's intelligence and strength combined with his lack of emotion, and he mentions how other Vulcans would envy Data for simply how he's designed. Data tells Spock that his choosing to suppress his emotions can be seen as Spock just kind of throwing away the thing that Data has strived for his entire life. Ambassador, do you miss your humanity? I have no regrets. That's a human expression. Yes. Fascinating. Meanwhile, back at the sleazy space bar, Worf is trying to get Worf gets a song request in. Good for Worf. And Riker goes all Sweeney on the Ferengi to get some answers. He took the Vulcan ship to the neutral zone, and that's where the Enterprise is heading off to. Data hacks a code concerning Romulan movements on the edge of the neutral zone, and the number's 1400. Spock starts to realize that the Pro Council might not be on the level. They had planned to announce the peace talks at 1400 hours. Sailor, flagged by Romulan soldiers, rush into the cave to arrest Spock, Picard, and Data. Pardek has betrayed them, but Spock taunts that Sailor taunts that unification will be carried out, but that's a Romulan conquest of Vulcan. Back in Sailor's office, Sailor is composing a speech for Spock, a fake announcement of peace plans to distract Vulcan before a planetary invasion. Spock looks at the speech and goes, "Nah, I'm not reading that. Syntax is all wrong. This is hardly my voice." But Sailor has a backup plan. She's going to use AI to make a deepfake hologram Spock to read the speech aloud. Left alone, Data and Spock use the access of the Romulan computer to create deepfakes of Riker with some terrible hair and some security guards to turn
AI, man. It just
How
can't
many
get it
fingers
right.
does he have?
He's not even a half human, half trombone. What is this? To turn the tide on Sailor. The Vulcan ships move across the neutral zone, but Riker and the Enterprise move to intercept. The deepfake Spock message is broadcast, but it warns of the Romulan invasion force, and the plan is thwarted. Data managed to get control of the deepfake Spock to broadcast the Romulan plans, although why he had to follow it up with Data rules, Spock drools, I don't even know. And Picard, Data, and Spock make their escape, but Data knocks out Sailor with a Vulcan nerve pinch, which Spock ranks a 9 out of 10. A Romulan warbird decloaks and destroys the 3 Vulcan vessels containing the invasion force, killing 2,000 of their own men. The Romulan reunification movement meets with Picard and the others in the caves. They're going to keep working to spread their cause, even if it means they have to teach a next generation, as it were. Spock won't be returning either. He is choosing to stay and continue his work. Reunification won't be achieved through just political and diplomatic action, but it will be achieved. The Romulans are struggling to achieve the emotional enlightenment of the Vulcans, and Spock wants to help. Picard agrees, knowing better than to argue with Spock. Sarek knew that. Spock regrets that Picard might know Sarek better than Spock ever could, since the two never mind melded. Picard offers Spock the chance to mind meld with him so he can touch the part of Sarek that remains in Picard. Spock agrees, and in mind melding with Picard, finally understand how his father felt. And I think, judging by Spock's expression at the end, this is when he chooses to let out the little fart that we see on the cover of the novelization of Star Trek: The Reunification, a novel by Jerry Taylor.
Nice. It all comes together.
All right, 4:15 over.
Oh,
Wow. I feel that's a team effort.
Yep. Result.
In fairness, I feel like Charlie had less to cover because there was just less happen in part one.
There was a lot of filler in part one, but like there was a lot of stuff at the same time.
Yeah,
a lot of stuff is going on. I think part one of TNG of the reunification feels like the most space opera-y that Next Gen really gets, because like they're going to so many different planets, they're going to so many different locations, there's politics, there's subterfuge in all levels. I'm like, this is like entire episodes of Babylon 5 would have this much of scope of events going on.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a busy old pair of episodes here. And just wondering, guys.
Yeah.
Did Riker fuck that widow?
Oh God, I hope so.
Yeah.
I would have. All those hands, you know?
Well, yeah. You could see it was like, well, I can pay with music.
Here's what I
he turned that chum right on compared to Worf, who, bless him, he was about as awkward as I would be. Like,
but he sings Klingon opera.
Charming. I mean, is that him doing it well? Is that good Klingon opera? Because it didn't sound good. It sounded like someone that was maybe raised with humans and knew about Klingon opera from books and stuff trying it.
It's like, you know, it's like that one song from Dexy's Midnight Runners. No one can sing the actual chorus, the actual song, but when it comes on to the "Come on, Eileen Taroo, yeah, come on," everyone sings it, even if it's terrible. Everyone's gonna sing it.
Hey, for the rest of it, you just drunkenly vocalize, and if you're me at a club, accidentally pour an entire whiskey and coke over a flatmate. It's a classic.
But oh man, oh god, yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Yes,
like again, I don't like. Okay, this felt very kind of DS9, because DS9
sure
very much has those. This is space opera. This is the rise and fall of empires and nations. While TNG is usually, either cues up the shenanigans again, or we're doing some admin work, and then a space anomaly eats us.
I mean, you've described why I like a lot of it. You know, give me the admin and the space anomalies, but I do get your point with this, and I wonder if they've hit the point where they realise that every civilization can't just be static. So actually going, even though we're not finishing the Romulan arc, not for, I think, another 820 years in the long term, but something is happening. And Romulans aren't a monoculture, Vulcans aren't a monoculture. There are people with differing perspectives, and people want things to move. And there's something quite nice, quite refreshing about that here.
And then even then, like the Klingon machinations, which I think has kind of been going on for a while over TNG, because you've got calls back to Picard helping in Klingon politics, and how Garon is like, yeah, no, fuck Picard. I'm just going to make it all about Garon. To get the cloak ship is like, yeah, there are wheels within wheels. It feels like, for a show which feels a lot like episode of the week, it does feel like, you know, things are changing, but it's changes that take time. It's changes that take place over years.
Yeah, and I know this was supposed to be kind of a tie-in to Star Trek 6 with that, and it feels like this is as close as Star Trek The Next Generation gets to films before actually doing films. You know, with these kind of two-parters, and we've not seen any of the big ones yet, you know, your best of both worlds and that, but this definitely bodes well for that sense of them going, yeah, this is something kind of epic even at our normal budget. Getting Spock in definitely helped. Like, the second I started seeing him act, I immediately had to message you both going, you know, Nimoy's got the juice. Like, fucking hell. Like, he is just that presence he has is incredible to see, even with the now 5-year experienced TNG cast. Just like, fuck, he's got it.
Like, it's great seeing both Nimoy and Stewart just act off each other.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, this feels like this is the goal. It's like, yeah, we're only going to have Nimoy and Stewart together for like 90% of the episode, but like every scene those two are in is fantastic acting across the board.
Well, and even Spock and Data, which, given the sense of Data always being referred to in TNG as, like, with early comparisons, going, he's kind of the Spock, but he wants to be human. You knew this had to happen with them meeting up and them talking about, what Spock wants to exercise from his system is what Data so desperately wants. And both from starting from that very logical side of it, wanting to veer in different directions.
I don't feel at this point Spock wants to excise his humanity, because that was the big thing
that's
of motion picture, was that he understood that for him, excising his humanity would leave him as cold as Vija. And that he has to kind of find that middle ground of being emotional, but also embracing a life of logic. And you see that where very much his arguments with his father definitely being that while Spock is acting out of best reasons, there is that sense of he's doing this just to tell just to go to his father, I was right.
I'm so excited for the Data and Spock thing, just because like it was prophesied by Admiral McCoy way back in Encounter at Farpoint Part 1. But the panic on Data's face when Spock refers to Picard as almost Vulcan, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I've been emulating the wrong human this whole time." Good.
He's not wrong as well, and
Right.
Yeah, that existential crisis is so good. So, oh god, yeah. I don't know if there's any kind of point where he goes from there to like, do I need to start emulating other humans? But yeah, just like, okay, learn some jazz.
That reminds me, though. That reminds me, like back, you didn't watch Sarek yet, but he unconvincingly has been playing violin because of the Sherlock Holmes things for several seasons now. And it's just very distracting and takes me out of it. Anyway.
Oh, so nice to see Mark Leonard again. Although
Yes.
I was unsure if that was his own personal home or like Vulcan Hospice.
Sure.
Because either way, as far as I can tell, how Vulcan treats its old people might be worse than how we treat them in the West. Because there seems to be a sense of, we're just going to lock him in a room, we're going to give him a bed, and we're just not going to talk about the fact that his emotions are kind of, overwhelming his sense of reason. Well,
it's offensive to the culture, right?
Yeah, and it's just like, man, if this is how Vulcans treat their elders, yeah, no wonder Spock pissed off to Romulus.
This is what awaits you, young Romulan child who looks up to me. If this works.
I mean, that said, what do Romulan elders get?
They get killed by the Tal Shiar when they're no longer useful. Obviously.
They get stabbed in the back very theatrically. Like, the Merciers, they don't tell you they're about to do it. It's like it's just kind of like, we're just going to stab you in the back, but we're not going to tell you when. Just
right,
it will happen eventually.
It's a very comforting thought.
Yeah, like maybe it's an aspirational thing. Like when you're old enough, you'll get betrayed by one of your offspring, who you will hope will do better, and they'll just murder you.
You know how loved you were by the amount of people who have like, lined up to stab you in the back. So if it's like 10 or 12 people, you lived a good Romulan life. If it's just your kid, yeah, you're a shitty piece of work.
On the other hand, Pardek was a senator for 9 decades, I think Sarek said. And like I think you didn't mention it during the recap, but he was the one that betrayed Spock in the end. So he's just like, towing that line all the way. There's no glory for him at the end of his tenure.
No. Before I forget, the scene with Picard on the bunk with Data just staring at him. That might be some of the best comedy in a serious Star Trek episode I have ever seen, because it is just Picard trying to get to sleep. I just love how Patrick Stewart delivered the line, "I'll take the shelf," and then there's Data just staring at him. And Picard's like, "I'm not getting any fucking sleep, am I?"
Yeah.
Brent Spiner slowly turning away when Picard asks him to look. He just turns his body and it turns his that man is a comedic genius. I love it.
And like in the great Shakespeare tradition, that like entire like joke scene is then immediately followed by the wham moment of Picard being told that Sarek has died.
Yeah.
In the most like understated way.
Yeah, I don't think I was ready for that impact at that point of going, oh yeah, these hijinks. It's like, oh shit.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's like, yeah, there are stakes, but before we get kind of delve too deeply, I gotta say, we don't get many sleazy space bars in Star Trek, and this one was the most BBC in that someone just went, okay, we've got some glittery materials. They're going to cover everything. We're gonna have one person with a piano just kind of playing some plinkety plonk, and we're just gonna stick some random extras in weird masks, and they're gonna stand around and kind of grunt and wobble. And it looked like Milliways from the Hitchhiker's TV show. Just half expected Peter Davidson to be kind of wheeled in, dressed as a giant green cow, and be offered at the dish of the day to Riker, who would be kind of perturbed by it, but Worf be like, "This is my best day. Why kill him? I will eat him alive."
I was gonna call this proto Farscape. Actually, that whole scene reminded me of so many of the seedy little planets that they would visit, and like I could have seen the piano player being like a Muppet instead of like someone with like someone else's hands behind her as she plays the piano and everything. But that scene was so good. Like, Riker's flirtation, Worf being completely tone deaf, like all the stuff they did in part 1 with the B plot to give those other characters space and to like meet at this moment. It was just the TNG cast doing their thing in a way that like, to fill time, but like I wasn't bored,
Yeah. It never did feel like the B plot never did feel like filler in a way that a lot of like long running Doctor Who can sometimes feel. But yeah, it's like Troy got a bit, even if it's having to deal with Jowl Man.
And the joy on Riker's face giving her that assignment, just those two are meant for each other. Spoilers, by the way.
But we get to see an early bit of like again Riker in command, which we see sometimes I think in TNG, but we're a long way removed from the Captain Riker we see in Lower Decks, who is a goddamn maniac, and I love him for it. My favorite line: "I love my job." Like Riker is already kind of working out what captain he's gonna be, and he's gonna be like a guy who punches stuff and is insane.
So, if that's all we've got to cover about Unification Parts 1 and 2,
deepfakes.
Deepfakes.
Yes.
Oh god, I love that they must have just gone fuck up Riker's hair a little. It doesn't quite work.
I liked it because like they come in and I'm like, okay, this can't obviously be Riker. What is up with Frakes' hair right now?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
God, that was weird.
Is that like a is that one of those things like, okay, did they is like a little bit of play they worked out like on filming, or is that like properly in the script? That's like a little gag.
Yeah,
This feels like
it'd
one
be
of those little.
interesting to know.
Yeah. It's like, or in the script, does it say Riker appears? Riker has really bad hair. We'll explain later.
Yeah, we have a big old list of best to worst Star Trek movies and episodes, and now we're going to have to weigh this against 125 Star Trek things. So, all the way at number one, we have Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, a legend amongst episodes. We have all the way down in 100, Strange New Worlds' Broken Circle, one of Spock's many stealings of a ship, and drinking with some Klingons, which is nice. And then all the way down at the bottom, we have new worst episode on our list. Star Trek The Original Series, Plato's Stepchildren, where there's a lot of prattling about, which is funny, then goes on too long, and is kind of just slightly questionable with the whole thing.
It's like the problem with a lot of improv comedy.
Oh god, yeah.
Like as someone who does improv, like the average length of your average improv game or skit is 3 minutes. Anything longer than that, you've got to get out. You've got to, because you are gonna lose them.
God, we've got a bit of a challenge here with this one. Because it was a good one. It wasn't like Plato's Stepchildren, where before I even recapped, Miles was like, so this is for Bossum. So let's see. Trying to see what other kind of things we've got here.
All right. First of all, let's give our guest first stab at this and see if we agree or he is wrong. So
just a ballpark kind of.
Go on, Sean. Looking over the list.
I'm kind of stuck, right? Because like there's a lot going on here that calls back to like the opening of the season. There's Star Trek from way back in season 3. There's stuff that you need to know to completely make sense of it. On the other hand, I feel like you don't have to watch it to make sense of it.
Yeah, this is unlike
we're trying to judge them on their merits, but at the same time, you know. How much of a Star Trek is this? Like, if you saw this on its own, would you be more likely to see it than you would say, you know, Move Along Home? That one with the clown in the Matrix.
What would I make of this if I saw just part 1 and didn't know anything else? Because it's just a big old tease until Spock comes along. I imagine you're doing this both.
We are, we're ranking them both together, luckily.
So you need it as one full story. I don't like you guys said. Like, there's a lot of politicking and not a lot of Star Trek per se. But I love Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
On the other hand, so I'm looking for Deep Space Nine. Is it as good as The Forsaken, which is like number 54? I don't think so. There are some really good emotional moments. I think, but maybe it is better though. I'm looking at the list here.
See the one the two kind of 2-part DS9 stories we've got Way of the Warrior at number 8.
Okay.
Which again is a big political. That Way of the Warrior is more action adventure, with the political intrigue being like the start, not the end. And then we have the Marquis at 71, and I would say this is much better than the Marquis because it it is able to keep all the balls in the air. At no point does it feel like anything gets dropped.
Yeah, the whole Ferengi Vulcan tech plot, while it feels a bit disjointed and weird, you know it is relevant. You can feel that in your bones going in and go like, okay, what's the thing that gets this? And you're intrigued by it, which is quite nice compared to some where it just, you know, a B plot can just faff about a bit.
Yeah.
I'm looking at Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow on number 39. That's such a tight episode. To me. I love that one.
Yeah.
I may also be biased, but like, is it I feel like it's a lot better than the Infinite Vulcan, and that's only like 4 spots down.
See, now, I admit I love the Infinite Vulcan. It is such like Silver Age Legion of Superheroes madness. But yeah, this is definitely better than the Infinite Vulcan.
This is hard, you guys. There's a lot of stuff on here, and I have not.
Yeah, this is how difficult this gets, because it's like, are we judging this as a unit of Trek,
Right.
or are we just kind of like doing the old point and click thing by taking this episode, moving it onto Meld, clicking it, and it going, this does not fit with Meld. It's like trying to put a hamster in a microwave.
Yeah, I guess if I'm using that metric, because there's a two-parter, there's more to do. I would say it's probably not as good as even The Big Goodbye, just because of how succinct it is as like an episode of Star Trek. So I guess I'm going between those two. The new number 42 is where I'm going to propose.
See, I was originally aiming a bit higher.
Go for it. I mean, it's your show, first of all, but convince me. I want to hear it.
Okay, where were you thinking, Charlie?
Okay, so I was looking around the kind of like Arman Bashir Necessary Evil sort of space.
Oh, so you're thinking like
between 16 and 18, because this is a real solid story.
It is.
It's got some really good bits. It doesn't deliver any big punchy action. But this is Star Trek. We're not here for big punchy action.
We're not DS9. This is like, we're at the point where in Star Trek, space battles is basically a guy looking at a screen going, the ships have passed the 3rd defensive line. We're going to use defensive mover 5, and then the ship shakes a bit, and like, that worked. They've moved back to the 2nd defensive line.
Yeah. I mean... Let's see, actually, just down from there, we've got Preemptive Strike with Rolaren infiltrating and then joining the Marquis, which was very good fun. And again, had some really tense, like, political sci-fi kind of stuff going on, it feels strangely comparable to it.
And like, this is also like, in terms of like Star Trek, this is I think this was like the first proper crossover between the original series and Next Gen. And I feel sells it. And it doesn't feel like they're doing a nostalgia grab, because like Spock is doing his thing. Okay,
going off that thought, as far as iconic Star Trek moments, because I see like a mock times on here and stuff. The line that Spock has about how he was doing this before Picard was born becomes a meme within the show forever afterward. So it feels like
I love the callback to how Picard is describing all this as cowboy diplomacy.
Yes.
And then Spock kind of dismisses him, and then later he's like, cowboy diplomacy, and he's like, yep, cowboy diplomacy. It's like he's still running up and down corridors in the 60s with James Kirk just toppling empires for funsies.
Yeah.
Like one of my favorite TOSs, A Taste of Armageddon, which is, where is that? Where number 33, where it's like, Kirk and Spock get their Doctor Who on, go to an alien planet, who are like, our society is perfect. Kirk and Spock call bullshit and go, right, we're gonna topple your empire.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And while Spock doesn't topple the Romulan Empire here, this feels like if Star Trek 2009 hadn't happened and Spock gets sent back in time to cameo in those films, this feels like the perfect endpoint for Spock. A character who spent his entire life in conflict with his heritage, with both his heritages and his upbringing, and has found the peace in combining the two. And this feels like his perfect endpoint is where this is how he chooses to end his life. Yeah. He's going to do it by teaching the next generation of Romulans to embrace their dual natures to find their enlightenment.
weirdly, he never mentions that spouse he allegedly married that Picard said he attended the wedding of. So what happened to that person? Let's not think about it too hard. It's
Yeah.
all right.
No.
Maybe it's Sarek. As we've noticed throughout the series, Sarek has so many children which he doesn't talk about.
Right.
That it just be another one. It just might be another one of Sarek's illegitimate or legitimate children, who Sarek will promptly consume like a mother hamster consuming its babies. This is Sarek. Also, it's Spock. We didn't know he had a brother until it was appropriate.
Right.
We didn't know he had a sister until it was appropriate. So
Right.
who knows? Maybe
That's never going to come up, though. Why would that come up?
No. Maybe like Spock had an argument with his wife, and just left for smokes, and never came back. It's like, right, I could either talk it out with my wife, or I can try and reunify the two warring cultures. Which one seems easier to me? Right, to Romulus.
Bold of you to assume it's a wife, although I don't see how any man can stand up to James Kirk. So
that would probably explain why elderly McCoy is so grumpy and tetchy in Encounter at Farpoint. His spouse.
No, headcanon. Yes, this is perfect.
Because let's be honest, if Spock got into an argument with his spouse, look, he basically, Sarek was dead to him for a good chunk of his life because they disagreed over which school Spock could go to. This is not a man who can apologize to someone.
Oh no. This is why I'm here, guys. This is the content I crave.
Oh my. Yeah. Well. Good.
That said, oh god.
Where were we? I think you've convinced me. I think the like high teens, low 20s is a good
right,
landing spot.
I think it might have to be our new number 21, because preemptive strike is a really good episode with a supporting character who I feel never kind of seems to have never gotten their big shot.
Yeah.
And as much as I would hate to knock number 21, which is Subspace Rhapsody, the musical episode of K-pop Klingons, down the list any further, I feel like as big crossovers go, I think this is how you perfectly do it, and not just get yourself mired in nostalgia porn and be furthering the story of the Star Trek universe.
All right.
Excellent. So, yeah, there we have it. That is our new episode 21.
Wow. See, this is why the crappy episodes are easier to this is why Enterprise is easier to talk about, because like, okay, how far down on the list do we want to go?
Yeah, where's that floor for some of them? Okay, so our final episode for night is Star Trek Discovery Season 3, Episode 7, titled Unification 3. Something which had me go back and go, wait, did I miss parts 1 and 2 when I first saw this? That's how much of a casual I am. It aired on the 26th of November 2020, written by Kirsten Beyer and directed by John Dudkowski. The UK number one hit was Positions by Ariana Grande, and the US number one hit was Golden Landis von Jones with Mood.
I mean, I got to correct you, as Ariana Grande, but I haven't heard the song, so what do I care?
It's all right. I keep getting it wrong. I keep forgetting which one's the right way round.
Sure.
If you're in a Starbucks for some reason, do you order the Grand Latte?
A big latte.
It's just so petite. It's funny.
I'm allowed to call him on it. I used to work for Starbucks. God damn it.
Yeah. It's right. I refuse to play the Starbucks game size-wise.
That's good. Oh, so I want to say Golden Landis von Jones.
Yeah.
Sounds like the most popular Welshman in Swansea. Oh, it's Golden Landis von Jones. He's a legend.
I know it's supposed to be 24K Golden, but when I found out that was his name, it's like yes, I'm having to use that. You know, it's like Drake being Jimmy from Degrassi.
It's like hang on. Oh God, what is John Wayne's actual name and not his stage?
Oh, Marion.
Marion Robert Morrison.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. There's there was this old 90s late night Channel 4 video review show called Vids, and one of the hosts, who clearly hated John Wayne, only ever referred to him by his original name. Because, John Wayne, that paragon of like conservative American masculinity, yeah, he would have the name Marion.
Of course.
Marion Morrison, like a very underwhelming 70s Stan Lee superhero.
Wow. So yeah, like I ran up against time, so I didn't hear Mood, but it has been the number one in a previous episode of Discovery that we've covered, and I actually remembered it, which for me and a lot of modern music, it's like, modern music that isn't like Amel and the Sniffers or anything like that. Going, popular music. I only know this when Todd in the Shadows covers it.
But in contrast, it made no impression on me whatsoever. Like, it sounds like everything else that's on the radio right now. So,
yeah.
4 years later.
Maybe it's because it would be the second consecutive time of hearing this same track that I think was the last track that I'd heard on the Discovery one. We've been covering the band episodes of the 1960s Star Trek, so the music's quite different. A lot of it is trash, and then you've got the Beatles,
Right.
All we can say is that it's not Ed Sheeran.
That is correct. Yes. So, Sean, as our guest star, this means that you're up now to recap this episode of Discovery, saving Miles and I the effort of recapping an episode of Discovery.
Glad to do it.
Excellent. Well, you've got 5 minutes.
All right.
And, engage.
Picking up where we left off with Picard, Spock, and the crew of the Enterprise D, Michael Burnham admits in her personal log she's unsure whether she fits in with Starfleet after being on her own in the 32nd century for over a year. Her obsession with the Burn, a subspace cataclysm that occurred 100 years prior to her arrival in the distant future that made warp travel dangerous and exclusive, might have caused her to commit some light insubordination. Instead of being locked in solitary and charged with mutiny, Michael is merely demoted to Discovery Science Officer and removed as First Officer, this milder punishment likely due to the fact that Captain Saru didn't meet the business end of a bat'leth, unlike her previous captain, previous captain. Michael gets her frustration out with her boy toy Cleveland Booker, telling him also that she doesn't feel like she fits in anymore, and randomly mentions that Spock would give her grief about her Messiah complex. Did I mention that Michael is Spock's adopted older sister? He was also once both a science officer and first officer on a starship, but beyond that coincidence and used as total normal pillow talk, I don't see any reason he would ever come up again. Presumably, after a quick sonic shower, Michael also apologizes for lying to her BFF, Ensign Tilly, but Tilly is more upset that Michael didn't realize, "Girl, I got you. You should have trusted me with all this insubordination stuff." Michael also tells Tilly that for fuck's sake, that she doesn't really fit in anymore. Tilly cuts her off to let Michael know that, yes, the black boxes she has been insubordinately recovering from starships that exploded during the burn show an extremely small time variance, which can be used to extrapolate an origin in space if they had just one more data point. But no more insubordination. She promised Captain Saru this season. Instead, she follows protocol and brings her findings to Admiral Vance, the Commander-in-Chief of Starfleet, to let him know that the SB-19 experiment to replace warp drive that has long been blamed for the burn could not be its actual cause, but the data collected could help him pinpoint its origin. But twist! Starfleet doesn't have access to the data because it was conducted by Navarre, a planet brand new to the Federation and Star Trek universe, and they are not sharing. Did I say brand new? I actually meant that Navarre is really the name for the planet Vulcan, one of the many worlds that seceded from the Federation after the burn, and whoopsie to think they might have caused it. Admiral Vance then infodumps for the benefit of these characters out of time and the audience that Romulans and Vulcans are actually sister species. And the planet Vulcan was renamed when Romulans were welcomed back after the off-screen destruction of their homeworlds, Romulus and Remus. Is that right? Yeah, Remus. I guess they didn't have the time to shotgun all of TOS, TNG, the Abrams Burst movies, and Picard Season 1 since Landing in the Future. If only there was some recap and ranking podcast they could have listened to that would have chronicled everything. Anyway, can you say road trip? Opening credits! And we're back. Discovery's spore drive can get them to Navarre in an instant, but not so fast. The Vulcans and Romulans have had a big sad about Project SB-19 for over the last century. Very logical, very demure. How will the Federation get its foot in the door? Suddenly, Admiral Vance pulls a Michael and decides to use her connections to the legendary Spock, architect of Unification, to gain an audience. And surprise! She's still alive 1,000 years after her birth. While the crew waits for diplomats to do their thing, Michael reviews the footage of Spock taken from Jean-Luc Picard's personal logs during the events of Unification 2. Useful exposition, since they skipped over it entirely during the previously on Star Trek Discovery recap. And guys, I think we're going to need a running Spock counter. Miles, will you do the honors? I think we're up to 4 already in episode mentions.
Fascinating.
All right. Meanwhile, in the B-plot, Saru offers to make Tilly his first officer to replace Michael. This will have no impact on the episode and is purely in service of the serialized aspect of the show, so we are moving on. Discovery arrives at Navarre, where they are greeted by President Tarina and the hottest Vulcan Saru has ever seen. Unfortunately, the obvious sexual tension isn't enough to gain access to the SB-19 data, so Michael does something drastic and challenges President Tarina to call in Ket. It wouldn't be an episode of Star Trek set in Vulcan without some kind of ancient ritual backed by catchy music. So is this combat to death by Lirpa? No! Instead, it is the nerdiest and most logical of challenges, combat by scientific dissertation. Very considerate, very mindful.
Combat by TED Talk.
Michael is assigned as her advocate, a member of the Kawat Malat, a Romulan sect that practices absolute candor, who were first introduced in Star Trek Picard Season 1. Rest in peace, Elnor. I mean, he's not really dead per se, except that since that 1,000 years later, everyone is, but also see Picard Season 2. Spoilers. The advocate is Michael's mom. She was originally presumed dead in Season 1, hence...
Time is up! And that revelation! Oh my god. I mean, you say so close.
So close, and yet.
We'll see. Okay, right. So I'm starting the clock now.
She was presumed dead in Season 1, hence Michael's adoption by Sarek and Amanda. Discovered in Season 2 to be alive, but time-traveling, and finally lost in a future where all life has been extinguished. More spoilers. Basically, she's Jennifer from Back to the Future, Part 2, except not played by Elizabeth Shue. Michael tells Mom she doesn't feel like she fits anymore, yada, 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 and Mom reminds Michael that the Kawat Malat bind themselves to lost causes. So encouraging. After some more B-plot, it's time for to call in Ket, and it does not start off well. Spock is invoked at least 4 more times. And then, oh no, Mom with the chair! She tells the quorum that Michael has been saying all episode about not fitting in with the Starfleet, yet asks Navarre to trust the Federation with the SB-19 data. Not very mindful, not demure. Michael comes clean about her doubts while also making the case that the Federation still seeks to live up to its ideals. The members of the Quorum, a Romulan, a Vulcan purist, and a Romulo-Vulcan moderate, show just how messy following that path can be, and that following Spock's quest for reunification will never be easy, but always worthwhile. Realizing her actions have laid bare of the tenuous peace of Navarre, Michael withdraws her to call and Ket challenge, vowing to collect the data in some other way. No need, though, because President Tarina decided that Michael's absolute candor meant that she and the Federation could be trusted after all. And also out of gratitude for the influence Michael must have had on Spock's life
Fascinating.
to make him the founder of their present civilization. Back on Discovery, Tilly decides to take the first officer job just in time to order Michael to analyze the SB-19 data and to switch bunks in their quarters because that's what an alpha does. And presumably a top as well. Saru and Tarina promise to go on a second date. Just don't call me, I'll call you. Michael tells Book the bad news that she won't be leaving Discovery to gallivant with him across the stars. Grudge does grudge things because she is, after all, a queen. Discovery breaks orbit from Navarre and heads into episode 8 of season 3.
Nice. That is 2 minutes and 6 seconds over.
Oh, my goodness.
So, Sean, I have a question based on your absolute candor in surmising this episode.
Yeah.
Why do you clearly hate Michael Burnham?
I am merely adopting the position the episode itself is adopting to put her in the spotlight and then smack down any arguments about her character. Essentially, I have to take the position to then deconstruct it, as you were.
I have a lot of love for a lot of elements of Discovery. It always being the Michael Burnham show. As much as I love that from season 3, she's allowed a bit more fun and to be a bit more kind of, I don't know, loose with it rather than just being kind of, I'm uptightly the protagonist. I'd forgotten how much Unification 3 was still very much about Michael Burnham, but in new ways, given her mum's presence here. Although, like, I did like that her mum was like, yeah, I'm not on your side. Like,
believe me, something I can identify with all too well.
Oh, no.
Oh,
but it was for her own good, you guys.
Yeah. And that's what my mum says as well.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Oh, no, it all got too real.
Well, a good episode, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Wow, we managed to out awkward the two Brits managed to out awkward the Americans.
Our power grows.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So the Navarre thing is interesting. Like, I like the idea of going, 820 odd years in the future from the Unification episodes. It may be no longer part of the Federation, which, I mean, fuck, they're a founder species. That's weird, but, like so many people that are isolated in the grimdark future of these seasons of Discovery, it makes for a fun challenge. And that thing of, so Unification happened kind of not including the Federation. Like, we're friends with each other now. Fuck off, you guys. And in a way, this felt like Unification was...
No, because they state that because Michael believes that the Romulans wanted to secede from the Federation. And then the Admiral goes, no, the Romulans wanted to stay. They're like Scotland in the Brexit analogy.
Oh, I'm glad you brought it up because I didn't want to have to.
I did like that with the Romulans being like, they were fine with the Federation. That was quite nice. Right. And I guess kind of understandable knowing all the way from Enterprise onwards the way that the Vulcans can be sometimes.
For sure. I personally, like when I first saw the episode, I was just relieved that in like the decades since that the reunification thing, which just went complete tits up after Nemesis, had some hope still. Because we hear about this stuff off screen in the 2009 Star Trek film. And then like little tidbits here and there. And then, of course, Picard season 1 follows it up. But there's like no indication that this is ever going to come to fruition. So just the idea that like the job isn't done, but it's possible still was just
Yeah.
an immense relief.
I still find it surprising and kind of comforting that the events that caused Star Trek 2009 still happen in canon, and they didn't just go, yeah, we could just ignore that.
Right.
That Romulan sun went nova, and the Romulans became displaced as a people, causing all matters of joy to happen to the Federation and everyone's favorite sexy maverick, J.L. Picard.
Oh god, yeah, it's fascinating how that's happened.
Yeah, like I enjoyed it. I did like the trial by TED Talk.
Yeah.
No catchy music though. They missed an opportunity.
Yeah. Perhaps when the Romulans join, they're like, okay, we're in, but just like, can we not have ritualistic trial by combat? Like, no, out. That's verboten now.
How does the integration of Romulans and Vulcans affect Ponfar?
I'm feeling like it's less of a taboo now because the Romulans are DTF. I mean, have you?
Wow.
Isn't Savick half Romulan? I don't remember if they even mentioned that during the movies.
I think it's I think that was cut, but I think it's in like the books.
Okay, that's where I got it from. Then, as an uncasual, I have these things rattling around in the back of my mind. But I mean, that scene in Star Trek 3 was, whew, it was hot. Just saying. And Robin Curtis is a way better Savick too. Got to put that out there.
Yeah. Let's think. This is always the hard thing to really talk when we talk about like Discovery and Picard, is that it always becomes down to these are really heavily serialized shows, and just trying to recap them on an episode by episode basis. This felt like an easier one to do than say the episode when they first enter the Mirror Universe, which I think still is our highest, like the quickest it's taken us ever to summarize an episode in 5 minutes. I can't remember the
Despite yourself, minute and 13 under. In place 113.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
So things like that, when you remember them abstractly, you go like, oh yeah, that story, that's a complete thing, not this was several episodes where they're in the mirror universe, or this was like with the musical episode that we did, there was an episode of Picard which had a musical number from a Borg Queen / Alison Pill, but I was so excited going, yeah, they're going to do a heist. It's a heist episode. No, it's the last half of a heist and a bunch of other things. So I was like, oh, I was so excited for some heists. That should be a theme.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we had the subplot of Tilly is doing a bit which would have been played for laughs in The Office.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved Stamets' reaction to Tilly being kind of like, I'd kind of be in charge of you, and somewhere between confusion and mild disgust, which luckily for him gets interrupted. But yeah, that kind of, I love when Stamets gets like that.
Yeah, I love that would be weird.
I appreciate, but don't know if I necessarily like that her consternation about taking the job also mirrored Michael's internal and very external struggle about whether she fits in. Because I gotta admit, I got very exasperated with her mentioning it constantly throughout the episode until it clicked that it was going to be important. And I had forgotten it was going to be important, but I fell right into that trap of being like, yep, this is just how Michael is and everyone hates it. Okay.
So how long do you think the rest of the crew had been workshopping the say yes thing? Like when Tilly meets him in
Yeah.
Spore Drive room, and they're like, "Say yes." And Michael was late because like if Michael's not an immediate part of it, Michael will forget it exists.
They had to have had a Slack going, right?
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
Like that.
Like the way this lot are, the kind of Type A nerds, they have a Slack, they have at least a couple of spreadsheets, you know, the whole thing. Everything is intricately planned with their lives. And if it isn't, if it goes slightly awry, then that's it. They've just lost it. They'll spend all their time quietly going, but I don't think I'm enough.
No.
And there you go. There's Discovery.
Meanwhile, Burnham is like, if there's anything here more important than my ego, I want it caught and killed. But yeah, like Discovery always loves the like I feel like with the modern show, like the Paramount Plus era of Star Trek, there is very much we're going to push idea that Star Trek isn't ideal. We're going to push that as much as we can because fuck it, it's 2024. We need some kind of hope, an ideal to believe in, and I feel this is one of those better ones.
Yeah.
When with Michael, because sometimes it can feel a little bit hokey, and you know what? I'm gonna say it. Feels a little bit twee. Like it was a good bit where just Michael's like, okay, this is gonna work. You know what? Yeah. You have no reason to trust us, but we're just gonna keep doing our Starfleet ideals, and eventually you might learn to appreciate us.
I did like that it ended with that rather than this one speech has won us completely over.
Yeah.
The sense of incrementalism can get a bit much, especially going, oh no, they're unified after 800 years of this. But yeah, this feels more like an olive branch than going, as long as we do nothing ultimately, then eventually things will sort themselves out.
Well, Vulcans are really long-lived, right? It's like 1,000 years is like maybe 5 generations for them.
Yeah.
But also, it occurred to me that like the Vulcans in that room might have been alive during the burn, and so it's a little personal for them. And Romulans too. Sorry.
It's almost as if incredibly
Romulans.
It's almost as if incredibly long-lived species tend towards isolationism and inevitable entropy. Gallifrey and the Time Lords say what?
This is what I have to deal with.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it also kind of ties into Rings of Power too and the Elves, but let's not go there because.
yeah, I guess in a way.
Or Space 1999. As we know, immortality is bad and weird, and just no.
Every time someone's like, we've cured death. It's like, no. What horrible thing have you done instead?
Thankfully, they didn't turn up on Niva, and they go. The Vulcan president goes, okay, well, we've done pretty well out of the burn. We implicated some eugenics programs, and yeah, everything's fine and dandy. Nope, turn around. You know what we haven't mentioned? Saru getting his Riker on.
Hell yeah!
Oh my god, I did not remember that it started this early.
Neither did I. Like the moment I saw him there, it's like, oh my god, it's Saru's future girlfriend. And then he's already like, hey, check out my spindly fingers doing the Vulcan thing, you know?
And she was into it, like
definitely.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Good for Saru.
Are you an alpha predator? Because I want to fight or flight you.
Oh my god! aren't like Vulcans supposed to be like more plant based or something? Like they're they have like copper based blood. I don't remember. This is all the nerdy stuff I recall from reading like the Spock novel, which told the story of how Vulcan had a sister planet despite Spock saying there's no moon, but maybe a twin planet counts as no moon. I don't know. Anyway, huge cataclysm sucked the atmosphere from the sister planet, made the lush paradise of Vulcan an arid desert for the rest of its days. And of course, undercut by everything that's happened since then. This is why I don't read Star Trek novels anymore, you guys.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot to deal with.
I think I remember Vulcans are meant to be vegetarian because in the episode of the animated series with the cat people, the cat people don't like Spock because Spock chooses to be a herbivore, and as we all know, cats be cats.
Right. I am legit amazed going back to the Unifications Part 1 and 2. I'm legit amazed that they worked in that animated reference so subtly. I didn't catch that the first time I watched it 30 years ago.
Yeah. The moment I heard them saying that, I was like, yes! Yeah! The episode with the time hole!
Maybe that was the big disconcordance between Romulans and Vulcans. Like, Romulans eat meat, and Vulcans are the conservative stereotype of vegetarians and vegans who are perpetually going around telling you that they're vegan.
Oh, God.
That might be like the reason for the split in their society.
See, I'm a lifelong vegetarian, and I've only met a couple of vegans who are like that, but they were very like that. Most vegans, lovely, and some good cooking. Although I adore cheese too much. I can't go fully in their wheelhouse.
Yeah.
We both live in Wisconsin. They're all about the cheese here.
I just had some cheese curds during the break. So
I love me some cheese curds. But do you know what I also love? Putting episodes of Star Trek on the big list. And before we get any further, Sean, there were 10 mentions of Spock, and there are several times where you said the berm instead of the burn.
No way.
Yeah, I'm sure there was.
Like the Rick Berman?
No, like Burnham. I could
Burnham.
Yeah, I could be wrong.
Interesting. Okay.
If I'm correct, edit this out. If I'm wrong, keep it in.
I know.
Let's go back to the tape.
Wow. Okay. Good. Make some nice work for future Charlie. Future Charlie here. Little did they know, I did no such work. So, our big list. So Unification 3, I feel, is no Unification 1 and 2.
No.
Just for starters. Like, let's see.
Yeah, Magic to Make the Sadist Man Go Mad might be my favorite discovery. Because Harry Mudd is a lot of fun. I like a good time loop. I still maintain that the scene in Magic to Make the Sadist Man Go Mad, where Burnham's clue to herself that she tells Stamets to make her know that she's in a time loop is that she's never been in love, is like such a fantastically non kind of how classic Star Trek would have really worked. That I always love that moment, especially Stamets is like, that's so sad.
Oh.
Then we've got at number 48, we've got the Vulcan Hello and the Battle of the Binary Stars. Another episode that gets brought up here where Burnham just loves doing mutinies. I think she and Spock have a contest going over who can mutiny against the captain more.
That'd be so good.
I brought that up in the recap because I felt it needed context in this serialized show, but then it gets brought up in the episode itself. In fact, that happened a lot of times when I was writing the recap, which is why it's so top heavy. Like, yeah. I think that it's not as good as that. I really like that opener. Personally,
it's a strong one. Definitely as a statement over this is what Star Trek is going to be in our heavily serialized streaming universe, for better or worse. And then, wow, we have myriad more than that.
Let's see.
Okay, here's a Vulcan-centric one, which is number 54, which is Enterprise Carbon Creek, where an ancestor of T'Pol's and some
so
Vulcans
good.
get stuck on 1950s Earth and have to blend in. Which, oh man, I love that episode.
Yeah, that was a really good one.
Yeah.
And that's an Enterprise episode, too.
And it's an Enterprise episode. See, we are finding good Enterprise episodes. The system is working.
Okay. So another one with some nice heartfelt moments is The Forsaken, where admittedly it's only one of the plots where you get, it gets a bit emotional. But yeah, it's still good fun. So better, or like, I feel that it's not better than Carbon Creek.
No.
I mean, I feel as as much as I really like The Forsaken and Renee Aubergenois again to show us that there are more layers to Odo than just being the stern by the book copper, and Michelle Barrett kind of getting to act off him and showing there are more layers to Loxana Troy beyond being Troy's horny mum.
Yeah.
Are there more layers than on Dakachin's face, though?
No, there are never more layers. And of course, after that, we've got 56, which is our old favorite Genesis, where Barclay turns into a spider. Worf definitely killed and ate someone, and there was a very extensive HR course afterwards. And oh god, like Genesis is dumb.
Oh my god,
Genesis is as dumb as a fucking brick. But
I love
it because it's so like I think everyone going into it's just like, yeah, this is fucking dumb. We've done dumber, but we can just sell this. And again, Worf kills a guy. Worf killed and probably ate several people that episode.
Okay,
I mean, he's probably not alone in having done it, but it does feel like very specifically Worf killed a guy.
There is definitely the fantastic just horror jump beat, which is stuff is going wild on Enterprise, and then it cuts to Picard and Data returning on the shuttle, and everything's fucked, mate.
Oh, love that.
So, like, oh man. Oh god.
Yeah, this is the problem as you start sliding down and going, oh my god.
57 is The Stars at Night, which is the season 3 finale of Lower Decks, which is Shaq's second best day, where he gets to eject the warp core. And I love Shax. He is my favorite shouty maniac with a heart of gold. And just like everything coming together, culminating in Shax finally getting to very tearfully eject the warp core.
Okay, so you're saying Stars at Night, again, better than Unification 3?
Yeah, like, Unification 3 is good, but again, it's just, I don't know. Like, all the good... Through the Valley of Shadows...
Oh god, yeah, that's the one where Pike's visiting the Klingon monastery and sees that he is going to end up stuck in the beep machine.
Is that also the one with the previously on segment, or is that a different Discovery episode? I think that's
one before. That's a different one.
Okay.
I think this one. I think this one is better.
Yeah,
like the scene where Pike discovers his future and like doesn't hesitate in doing what he has to do. It's like, again, I think both these, like, the Paramount Plus era really wants to push here is the ideals of what Starfleet represents. Whereas I think like in the modern, the Burnham Braga era, it's very much like an underpinning, where here it's very much, it's part of the... Whereas in like TNG, you have Picard going, well, this is Starfleet, this is what we do. And in Pike, it's in Discovery, it's like, we are Starfleet. This is the cause to which we have allied our flag. This is this is what we are. This is who we are as an organization.
See, I think, yeah. While that can sound a little hokey, especially as people that have moaned about Jeff Johns a lot who has, his attitude towards hope and towards, we'll just think positively and it'll be fine and we won't actually need to do or address anything. At least they do and address things.
Yeah, at least the ideals don't. It doesn't feel like window dressing.
So I've got a potential flaw here. For 64, Voyager's persistence of vision, which is kind of like a not as good version of Where Silence Has Lease. We get some fun hallucinations, but it's not quite it's not interesting enough for me to remember the name of the space jerk that I put in there.
It's Star Trek. There are so many space jerks.
There really are.
Yeah.
I love that about space in Star Trek. It is so much more horrifying than so many other things. Like you were mentioning Farscape earlier, Sean, and there's definitely that vibe of fucking hell, just
so full of jerks.
Go carefully into space because it is weird.
But sadly, at no point in Star Trek does anyone have vomit applied to their face. It does happen. It happens in Farscape. There's a point where when they're all going mad, because they all go mad like
fairly regular.
Every 3 or 4 episodes. Crichton kind of just snaps towards the end of season 1 and is basically on the verge of just going full nutcase.
I do love that about him.
Yeah,
he evidently snaps and will not get better than that point.
I do like Ben, from what I've seen of like season 2 of Farscape onwards, I do like Ben Browder's incredibly twitchy space hero.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good.
It gives me those Black 7 vibes that I do enjoy.
I felt it coming before you said it.
We need a bingo card or something, really. Okay.
So you know what? I am going to agree with you. Because we can't remember the space jerk, but we can remember everyone telling Tilly to take the goddamn promotion. We have complaints.
Yes.
We really need a second in command because we've got so much shit that needs doing.
We've got
it doesn't matter if it's you. The spreadsheet needs updating, Tilly.
Was Tilly's journey in that episode better than Michael's? Oh no.
I think it was because Tilly is delightful. I think we can all on some level relate to Tilly, because at some point I'm sure we've all unironically used the phrase I'm problem solving, I've had espresso.
All right. I hope that this Starfleet Academy show is good, you guys.
Same.
Oh.
I love the idea of a Starfleet Academy show. I love that the grimdark future isn't going away. That they're doing stuff with it. They're not like fringe season 5ing it, because I've still not seen the end of Discovery. For all I knew, that's exactly what they'd have done. But we'll see.
Okay.
What I know is we will definitely be covering it here, and we'll probably be happier about covering it than the Section 31 film.
Oh goodness! I
can't.
Wait.
I can't wait to discuss about it with my good friend Miles.
Yes.
I
I don't know.
I don't know. Positive spin.
I feel like whenever it happens, we may want to get a couple of guests on for that one.
Could get a ragtag team ready to do some, I don't know, insert Guardians of the Galaxy reference / Borderlands the movie reference. I don't know.
I'm sure just if we ask Celeste would just be happy to not be asked to be on a Star Trek where we talk about where Star Trek fucks up on gender.
True.
Unless we don't know what's in the episode yet, though.
If everyone has, if part of it is everyone has to have gender surgery. Oh dear God.
My word. Anyway, on that chilling note about the future, That's it for us this week. And next time we are back to more episodes banned by the BBC. Yes, Auntie really had a spree with banning episodes of Star Trek, and not even just the original series. So tune in next time to see what on earth they were thinking of. In the meantime, though, Sean, as our guest, what do you have to plug?
Sure. So most commonly, you will see me on YouTube at Famicom Dojo Live, where I bounce between different retro games and whatever our producers pick for us, which is actually going to be coming up right around the time that this episode drops.
Ooh.
So about that week, I think,
Okay.
is when we're having that one. But in the meantime, we've been finishing up games like Fallout 3, the Lovecraftian horror of Eternal Darkness, I believe
Nice.
Fazanadu for the NES, and good stuff like that.
Did you ever finish Maniac Mansion?
No, I didn't. Miles was on, graciously came on for a piece to basically say I told you so about an insistence I made during his appearance. And I'm sorry to say that clip did not do as well as I had hoped for. Not because of anything that you did, Miles, but YouTube is a fickle mistress.
Yep.
So a bit better. If you like the Farscape discussion we had, any of the Doctor Who stuff, my cohort Vink and I also do a podcast on the Nerd and Tie Network called Two Boobs Watch the Tube. So we take things a season at a time because boy, there's a lot of TV out there, and someone's got to review it all. I think the Farscape one and the Quantum Leap one that we mentioned are some of our favorites personally. And we did Star Trek TOS Season 1 as well to make that thematic and tie in.
Wow. And now, of course, get off our patch.
Oh, yeah.
Star Trek's our bitch.
Now that I've pilfered your audience, they're totally going to follow me out of here.
Okay.
No. Not going to happen.
Oh, well, it's been a joy. And if you want to check out Casual Trek stuff, we pretty much only exist on Blue Sky as a social media presence at casualtrek.bsky.social. But if you want to hear us talk about any specific episode or theme in Star Trek, go to our Ko-fi and press some gold into our palms. And we're not fussy about how much even. Just do that. Suggest episode theme. We've even done character before with the Dax episode. And we'll get on that. Miles, where can people find you online?
You can find me on my blog at mareedlobato.wordpress.com and on Blue Sky at marsreedlobato, all one word, .bsky.social.
Nice. I can be found on skyshark.bsky.social. Also on Faked Tales, where I was going to post a thing about 2000 AD, only to realise I've written maybe half of it. So who knows? By the time this airs, maybe it'll be there. Also on Who Dares Rolls, where I've been writing about the Assassin's Creed role-playing game, which I'm shocked to inform you does not suck. So that's it from us. And so find your similar species, unify with them, sexually maybe if you're Riker,
Or Saru.
Saru's gonna get his. Well done, Saru.
If you're gonna sing to a song in a bar, make sure it's a song that everyone's gonna wanna listen to. Come on, Eileen, always a classic. Freebird, you're gonna get your face kicked in.
Klingon opera. I didn't see many people joining in with that one.
No, Klingon opera is the Freebird of the Star Trek universe.
Oh dear. Well, go and sing anything but Freebird or Klingon opera, and go do a Starfleet.
Live long and have a jelly baby.
And until next time, Casual Trek is looking forward to that next Legacy sequel.
Yeah. Well, Unification 4. You have been listening to Casual Trek, a Nerd and Tie podcast, presented by Charlie Etheridge Nunn and Miles Reed Lobato. Music by Alfred Etheridge Nunn. Star Trek by Paramount. Not us. Not yet.